How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Ham Radio Crash Course. Welcome to Saturday. We got a fun one for you today. We are going to try and pass the Ham Radio Merit Badge. It's a radio merit badge, but there's a choose your own adventure portion where you can dip into ham radio. So we'll be getting started with that soon. Enjoy the memes until we get there. Alrighty, how's it going, everybody? I'm Josh, KI6NAZ. Thanks for clicking on the Ham Radio Crash Course. This should be a fun one. This is one that I wanted to do when we went up to Thomas Mountain to get everybody involved and kind of have a fun little, I don't know, can we pass the requirements of the Ham Radio Merit Badge? And again, I keep saying Ham Radio Merit Badge. The Merit Badge is the Radio Merit Badge, and this is what the book looks like right there. It covers multiple things, right? It covers like broadcast radio, and it also talks about radio direction finding, among some other things too. So we're going to try and walk through as much of the requirements as we can. So yeah, anyway, everybody enjoy. We are live, so we'll be taking your questions and comments. And so thanks so much. Appreciate you coming on out. Got a couple of announcements here. First things first. The patches are live. The link is in the show stream pin for the comment. So if anyone wants a Ham Radio Crash Course patch, there it is. We've got so many comments on it. It's there. It's live. So everybody go check that out if you're so inclined. Thanks for all the support. We do appreciate it over at hamtactical.com. All right, on now, happening right now, Winter Field Day, January 28th and the 29th, so we got one more day tomorrow, partial of the day, so I hope everybody's staying warm out there, staying safe, and doing what you do. I hope everybody's enjoying it. I definitely saw 10 meters was hopping with some field day contacts. Remember, not an FT8 event. You got to be able to pass emergency traffic. It's a simulated kind of emergency event, so make sure you check that out. Reminders for everybody, every Thursday at about 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we do the HRCC Digital Net. There should be links in the description, but if not, it's real simple. You just go to hrcc.link, Lima, India, November, Kilo. That's the actual URL. It still cracks me up when we do that. And yeah, we have DMR, Yaesu System Fusion, D-Star, and M17 connected to the digital net, so you can check it out that way. And if you want to do the HF net, that's on Fridays at 6:30 p.m. Generally, 6:30 p.m. on 40 meters is where we've been meeting up, and that's on Discord, where that's all coordinated. It's best if you join us over on the Discord for following that. It's the easiest way to keep up to date on all of that. Basically, you join the hashtag HF-net chat, and that's where everybody will be, and it's a live chat as they're doing the net. That's really the easiest way to find it. Link for the Discord is definitely in the description, and I encourage you to join us out there because after we wrap up this video, we're going to go do the after chat over there, and we're going to have a fun ham radio discussion, not just about today's topic. It includes whatever we want to talk about, hopefully answer newcomers' questions in ham radio, so make sure you join us over there. All right, Radio Merit Badge. I was a scout myself. I had many merit badges. I did a ton of merit badges when I was in scouts. One that I didn't do was the radio merit badge, and I'll kind of explain why. I particularly when I was younger and was of the lower ranks in Boy Scouts, I would look, there wasn't really internet back then. I would look at the book. I mean, there was, but, whatever. I would open the books, the requirements manual, the merit badge book, and I would look at the requirements to earn the merit badge. And when it was going on to 3-4 pages for some of these, I was like, yo, dog, we're going to save that for when I'm a little bit older and probably a little bit smarter. So, particularly summer camps in the first, couple of years, tenderfoot, second class, first class, that kind of thing, I was, all about grabbing as many of the easy ones as I could. So, the radio merit badge is a little daunting when you look at it. And yes, radio, because if you're looking at the screen here, there's actually a choose your own adventure that you go on here, which is kind of cool. You can do a couple of things. In fact, the shortwave listening, I believe, is one that was a part of the revision that they added. But amateur radio is one of the things that we're obviously going to be looking at the amateur radio side of the house. We're going to look not so much at radio broadcasting. And I got my radio on because I was doing simplex earlier today. Radio direction findings on the list, and obviously SWL listening is part of it too, and radio broadcasting, right? All right, lots of people in the comments. You're a young whippersnapper. Yeah, no, I'm not. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you coming out. I used to teach the radio merit badge years ago when I was a camp staff. Well, see, that would be cool. So this is definitely one of those merit badges where you kind of build up to it. I know we're going to kind of blow through a lot of this stuff pretty quickly, but this is one of those ones where it's a bit of a project. You got to put a little bit of effort into it. Most of it, though, you can do. If you're a scout, you could do this in most of it in a sitting without much complication, I feel. And I should mention this before we completely just dive into all of this. I want to show you some of the cool stuff that is in the Merit Badge book, which is why I would highly recommend it. Also, there is a worksheet that you can use to go along with this if you were so inclined. Oddly enough, if as a ham, like if you're a new ham, I know everybody's like, well, there's a merit. What are we talking about merit badges? As we're going along, answer these questions yourself, right? See how you would answer them. Explain what radio is. Discuss the differences between broadcast radio and hobby radio. But this is kind of what's cool about this. And let's go to the overhead cam on this one, okay? So check this out. Yeah, there I am. See, hey, how's it going? Although I'm I've green screened myself out there. But let's take a look at this book really quickly. So the way the merit badge books work is you've got the requirements right up front. And this is what I would do. I would literally go to the racks and I would open up the books and I would go through the requirements like, okay, you have 2 pages. That's not bad. But then you get to the second part and it's like, uh-oh, here you go. Choose your own adventure or amateur radio broadcasting. And you got to do one of these, right? That's what it says here. You got to do A, B, C, or D. And then I'd start going through it. And this is the point that I'd like to make with these merit badge books. These are really good books for a little bit of detail on a lot of really cool topics. And radio is no different here. For a young person, this is a really helpful little journal of information, which I think is like really cool. Lots of really good pictures that go along with this. Discussions on analog versus digital. It talks about the electromagnetic spectrum. There's actually a requirement that involves the electromagnetic spectrum. Morse code. Really cool stuff. And here's the breakdown of medium wave, high frequency, VHF, and UHF. I made a little note here to bring this up. Who's that? Who's that guy? Who's that guy? Ray Novak in the merit badge book. I saw that and I was like, oh man, we definitely gotta make a shout out to Ray. But yeah, it's really cool. So, okay. A lot of this we can do just kind of here in front of the computer. There is a portion, if you go down the amateur radio path, where you have to make some QSOs. And you can actually do a simulated QSO if you want for a 10-minute contact. That's okay. You could do that, but I think it's really interesting. By the way, for all you amateur radio operators that are listening, you don't have to be directly involved in scouting to become like a merit badge advisor for stuff like the radio merit badge. So if this sounds interesting to you, you may want to, volunteer your time to kind of help teach people this. And it could be as simple as just taking your HT, right? Teach the kids how to use an HT and have somebody go a little bit of distance away out of eyesight, basically, and make a 10-minute contact. Now you can, if you are an amateur radio licensed amateur and a scout attempting this merit badge, you can use your QSL cards to kind of represent that you made contacts and you know how to make actual real world contacts. And that includes digital as well. Digital is actually included in this merit badge. So you can actually do a digital QSO and that would count, which is pretty cool. But why don't we come back over here and we kind of just, can you actually type in here? Oh, that's kind of cool. You can do that right there and then actually just print it out. It is a PDF that has an entrance area. But we can just kind of go down the list of explain what radio is, right? So what is radio? In its simplest terms, radio is some kind of device, electronic device, that will create radio frequency radiation. It radiates energy, and that within that energy is a modulated signal. Oftentimes it's voice. So if you're holding up your little radio here, it has a microphone that is taking the information, in this case your voice, taking it into the radio and modulating it as something, in this case frequency modulation in the case of this particular radio. And then it transmits it, right? That's actual energy that's radiating out of the radio. Now, someone that's receiving this, right, they're receiving that energy into the antenna, and it is being demodulated, and that information, which was your voice, so the transmitting voice, gets sent out through, the audio processor or whatever it has, the mixer, whatever, and then out the speaker, right? And then you hear what that demodulated information is. So that's radio in a nutshell in the two-way sense, right? So we got a radio here. We hold down PTT, talk, talk, talk. People that are around us that are on the same frequency can hear the radio, the signals, and demodulate them if they're using the same mode of operation, in this case, FM. If you flip it around a little bit, right? So let's go here. So if you flip it around a little bit, we got my timer here in case we're going to make a contact later. This is HF radio. HF radio, high frequency radio, same kind of thing, right? I'm still going to talk into this microphone, and that information is going to get modulated and sent out as radio frequency radiation, a part of the electromagnetic spectrum. But we're going to be on a different frequency, and we're also using a different mode of operation. It says USB there. No, that's not the port that goes in your computer, but it's actually the lower, or it's a single sideband transmission is in the mode of operation. Now, obviously, there's broadcast radio as well. Broadcast radio is part of the commercial side of radio. I'm generally talking to you all from the amateur radio side. Ed asks, could you invite a troop to a club meeting? Thinking of a demo for the scouts. Yeah, you know what you could do, and I'll take a little side note, because I am going to try and keep this ham radio focused. I'm talking to hams, right? But I think this is a fun topic regardless. Yeah, if you're a member of a club, I see no reason why you couldn't host a ham radio club meeting event where you invite a troop, maybe multiple troops, to come and do this with them. And these worksheets, you can just print them out and they can write them right there. And basically how this goes, if you've never done this, if you're new to this whole thing, you have a den master or den leader who is competent in this area, right? They qualify to adjudicate the requirements and sign off on you knowing the requirements of the merit badge. In the case of ham radio, it's a little, there's a little bit of knowledge you have to have there. And what I'm telling you right now, what I just answered that first question, is what I would have done when I was a scout, talking to the den master or, the merit badge person in terms of passing that requirement, right? So they'd have a little piece of paper and they can go check, yay, verily. They pass that whole thing. So if we move along here to the next question, and hopefully you're answering these questions as I'm answering them in your head, because these are good little challenge questions for you as a ham on how you think you know the whole thing. So this is explain what radio is, and then discuss the differences between broadcast radio and hobby radio. So for broadcast radio, that's usually in the form of some kind of commercial radio, and they're always transmitting, right? The AM, FM stations that you hear on your radio, they're doing it as a business or as some type of service. Think of like NPR or something along those lines. They have a show, almost like you're watching me on this live stream, but it's a show that would be transmitted in audio format, either AM or FM generally, but the goal is to put out some kind of information. It could be practical emergency information in the case of like an emergency bulletin, or it could just be music or some kind of show that they're running. It could be old-timey radio where there's a couple people on microphone talking back and forth. And yeah, that's kind of the difference, or that's at least what broadcast radio is. Hobby radio, and this is going to tie into another question later regarding the FCC. Hobby radio is about, I believe, in some major form, and then there's lots of other forms. It's about the continuing and the advancement of the radio hobby and service, depending on how you want to look at it. In our country, the FCC both acknowledges that amateur radio in particular is a hobby and a service, but in itself, the service aspect of it is, if you will, is not really necessarily emergency focused. It's in the perpetuation, growth, and advancement of radio and knowledge of radio and the importance of radio. So what we do as amateurs is to continue to get better at a personal level, grow our knowledge, technical capabilities in working with radios, both the building of them if you wanted to do that, but also the creation of software that interfaces with them, the building of antennas, and actually using them to be proficient in two-way communication, because that's the big major difference between broadcast radio and amateur radio, is that we are having a two-way conversation, and we must be proficient in both transmitting and receiving. All right. Differences between broadcast and two-way communication. Well, if there's dead air on a radio broadcasting station, that means lost money and potentially FCC fines. I believe that there is a fine that they pick up if they're off the air for some length of time, either on purpose or not on purpose, right? Because they need to be keeping those airwaves full. Now, two-way communications are kind of like I just said. If I had two radios, right, I could have my buddy have one a mile away, and I can have one, and I can squawk at him, right? We hold down the PTT to transmit. We let go to listen. That's the difference between that. Radio call signs and how they are used in broadcast radio and amateur radio. Well, because of entities like the FCC, right? That's the United States, but there are many FCC equivalents that exist in other countries. But if you take America, for instance, the FCC issues call signs for the different radio services. Now, there are some radio services that require no call signs, like CB radio, FRS radio, but things like GMRS radio, amateur radio, and broadcast radio have call signs. I'm thinking of KLOS, right, down here in Southern California, or K-Rock, or, whatever. I myself, I have a call sign. I am Kilo India 6 November Alpha Zulu. That was issued to me by the FCC. That's my call sign. I didn't pick it. I didn't get a vanity or anything like that. And the purpose of that is so, one, there's someone attached to it, a human being, and the FCC generally requires that you have an address attached to it as well, so that they can find out who that person is that's attached to the license. There's other things that go onto it as well for broadcast radio, but the idea behind the call sign is that there's some unique identifier that specializes you as a radio operator. And it can be, and here's a bit of a distinction, I am the license holder. I am Kilo India 6 November Alpha Zulu. But at a radio station, broadcast radio station, the station is the holder of that license. And it may be one human being that may be attached to that, or, a couple of human beings. But the operator who's talking into the microphone, or the producer in the booth that's controlling the levels, or the engineer that supports the radio when they're there, they're not necessarily that call sign. They use it as an entity, as a business, or, a broadcast radio station. All right, so the phonetic alphabet. This is a good one. The phonetic alphabet and how to use it to communicate effectively. So I believe, yes, this is the Wikipedia page for this. So I just use Kilo India 6 November Alpha Zulu. That's my call sign in phonetic alphabet. Phonetic alphabet, when you say a word associated to K for kilo, and if you know K is kilo and kilo is K, when you hear kilo over the air, in sometimes noisy environments, sometimes it's really hard to pick out a voice, the word kilo gets through over the air a lot better than just saying K, K. I said K. Did you copy K? Copy K, right? So the reason why we use phonetics is in a case where it's not crystal clear audio, like on a cell phone or sitting next to a person in a quiet room. You could even use phonetics in a loud environment where it's really hard to hear people that are talking. A phonetic is a way of having a longer form in a letter and expresses itself or comes across over radio much, much easier. So highly recommended, particularly if you are a QRP, which we'll be talking about in a little bit with Q codes. A QRP station, and you want to make sure you get out or M heard, then I recommend using the phonetic alphabet. All right. All right, so here's our first interactive one. Sketch a drawing showing how radio waves travel locally and around the world. Well, hell. Let's see if I can bring up my handy-dandy John Madden whiteboard here. Let's see if we got that. Is it there? Give it a second. It's going to space. Give it a second. Hey, that's a really fun factoid. RF Field Tech with a cool... let me make sure I get you in shot there. Hold on, buddy. Good comment. Hammer Crash Course, even cell phone towers have call signs. And if it has a license... And if it has a licensed medium wave 6 and 11 gigahertz, it has a separate call sign. Ooh, that's really interesting. That's super cool. I didn't know that. All right, so what's the question again? Sketch a drawing, a diagram showing how radio waves travel locally and around the world. Okay, so this is kind of a breakdown of... Oops, can't do that. A breakdown of whether we're talking about line of sight and beyond line of sight. Radio transmissions. So I'm going to use a highly exaggerated globe here, right? So here's the globe, and you are a huge man with a radio, right? So locally, if you're using VHF, UHF has a propensity to just blast out in all directions, and it doesn't really care anything about the atmosphere. The only thing it cares about is absorption and just going until it can not go any further. So no, I made a color. Did I not make a color? Give me a color. There we go. So when you transmit, you're basically transmitting in all directions around you, omnidirectionally, right? This is what you would consider a local contact. Realistically, the world is much bigger than this. So you're likely just going to keep transmitting. Your signal's going to keep going so long as it's not either absorbed by the atmosphere or a building or a mountain, and it's just going to pierce on through. That's why we use VHF, very high frequency, and ultra high frequency radios to talk to satellites like the ISS in terms of a manned satellite, or SO50, which is one of the amateur radio satellites that's been around for a really long time. We use VHF and UHF to do that because it's just line of sight most of the time. So, come on, buddy. There we go. Now, beyond line of sight, and this is the one that I am the most interested in because this is HF radio. So we'll bring back that world again, and let's pretend, we've got a ham over here, and they've got a radio, and they've got, some kind of, let's call it a Yagi antenna, right? And I'm over here with my radio, and I too have a Yagi antenna. This is a directional antenna. Well, so this is, let's say this is, I'm going to the left. No, this is me. I'm here, and this is the UK. This is a rare contact for me, right? Well, in between us is a lot of land, right, and water. And we also have the atmosphere, kind of a huge portion of the atmosphere that's between us. Let's see. Have a happy accident moment. That's right. We're definitely going to be doing a little bit of that here because we're having some fun. Okay, good. Nope. Stop. So in between us are layers of atmosphere. And these are not to scale, so don't at me, okay? Something like that. And depending on the time of the day, when I transmit, my signal that's coming out of these way too big antennas for this, right? The scale of this, again, is completely wrong. It's also going to transmit in all directions, but unlike VHF, UHF, for for HF radio, come on now, there's my studio pen, my favorite pen. For HF radio, high frequency radio, Basically all frequencies under 30 megahertz. The omnidirectional nature of it, and I'm going to use just a single line to represent it, is going to hit one of these layers and bounce. Now, if I had a radio station here that I was trying to talk to or was listening to me, they could hear me. That means that UK is sometimes a little bit harder to get to. Sometimes, though, when we're really lucky, it bounces a couple of times. And that bounce, the refraction, the propagation capability of higher frequency, longer radio waves allows for these longer distance contacts, right? So this is the international contacts, if you will. Now, of course, depending on the time of day, that changes completely. So let's grab another color here. So let's say it's nighttime, and I am transmitting, and instead of a multi-hop, I'm going to go to one of the higher layers because these layers during the evening are dissipated. It may still bounce, but it may only bounce one time. The layers of the atmosphere are what allow us for these international type of contacts, particularly on HF ham radio. Okay, so that's my drawing. I hope that pleases the court. We'll come back to the drawing in a second here. In fact, let me clear that. There we go. All right. Now this one, this is a demonstration. Now I know you're not really supposed to do this. Maybe the scouts can. I don't know. Somebody can tell us if they can demonstrate or not. But we are going to do a little bit of radio demonstration here. So I'm going to put on my cans. I am connected to an HF radio right now. But the question is, explain how the broadcast radio stations like WWV or WWVH can be used to help determine what you might hear when you listen to a shortwave radio. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and bring up my radio. And I am on what's called 20 meters right now, which is an amateur radio band. But if I turn on the audio here, you should be able to hear this in a second. There it is. You're listening to the noise of my radio, and I can tune around a little bit. There's somebody talking. There you go. You should be hearing it.
3, Foxtrot Echo.
Okay.
Kilo for Charlie. I didn't catch it. Kilo Charlie 3.
You get the idea. I'm going to mute for a second so I can explain the next part. So WWV or WWVH is the not international, but it's a radio station that outputs a time signal, and it's literally just a radio clock. It exists on a couple of special frequencies. So if I input the frequency directly, here we go. You ready? And I'm going to put it in AM. There we go. Now you can really hear it. So this is a radio signal on amplitude modulation on 15 megahertz. This particular signal is being transmitted out of Colorado and is a clock signal. It's a second, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can use this to determine what bands of operation are actually open and the relative signal quality or signal strength that you'll be able to hear when you're listening on a shortwave radio. My radio here is a shortwave radio.
29 minutes, coordinated universal time.
The audio's in there a little bit. But, okay, so that's close to the 20-meter ham radio band. So what that tells me is, hey, Josh, if you wanted to make amateur radio contacts and you can hear WWV, it's very likely that the 20-meter band is also going to be open for that. Hey, that's good news. But we can also go to a couple of other frequencies because WWV transmits on a couple of frequencies. So let's change that to the next one is going to be 10 megahertz. Now, we're still hearing that click, and it's going to take a second for this top antenna to tune up.
1 hour, 30 minutes. Coordinated Universal Time.
Yep, WWVH means I'm hearing the female
National
voice. Yep.
Institute of Standards and Technology Time. This is radio station WWV.
I know for a fact them radio waves is
broadcasting
harmful.
on internationally allocated standard carrier frequencies of 2.5, 5, 10, 15, and 20 megahertz, providing time of day, standard time intervals, and other related information. Inquiries regarding these transmissions may be directed to the National Institute of Standards and Technology. Radio station WWV, 2000 East County Road 58.
Well, thank you, Christiana, for the super chat. WWV is the International Bureau of Standards. Well, thank you so much. So the atomic, yeah, that's a great point, Brian. You're exactly on point. Brian, WM8G, says, your atomic clocks listen to WWV. I don't have it on me, but I have a Casio Rangeman watch that is an atomic clock and solar, and it sets its time based off of this radio frequency. Not this particular one, but you get the idea.
Universal Time.
Oh, Ken. That's a little bit in the radio weeds here. I'm going to mute this for a second. So yes, many times when I build a radio, like a radio kit, I will use WWV because it's a solid signal right on 10 megahertz, for instance, to tune my receiver on that radio. And yeah, as a radio amateur, we do have that capability to do that. And WWV has many uses. That is included of it. So what's the answer to this question? Well, the answer is, let me mute this for a second because they're going to blow everybody up otherwise. Okay. So the answer to this question is WWV allows you, if you're a radio shortwave listener, which I grew up, before I knew about amateur radio, I was a shortwave listener. So I had a little, tiny little radio with a wire. And I used WWV to basically give me an idea of what radio frequencies or shortwave bands that I could potentially be listening to. And yes, indeed. There are shortwave bands for broadcast shortwave radio that are different than that of amateur radio. So there you go. Hey, Matt, thank you so much for the super chat. Almost forgot. Have a beverage of choice on me. I passed my general exam using the videos. Hey, Matt, congratulations. I'm so glad. I'm so happy you've done that. Now you can get on the HF bands like we're talking about here. Right on. Congrats. All right, a couple of other questions, and these kind of go hand in hand. We've already talked about how local signals propagate and how they work, and those beyond line of sight signals like on HF or shortwave. Explain the difference between a distant DX and a local station. Well, generally, going back to what I talked about on those images, can I undo that? Wait, can I undo my image? Hold on. Oh, heck yeah. We're going to go back. You gotta go back. All right. So this is a beyond line of sight example, right? I have made a long-distance contact from me to the UK using some radio frequency. That is a DX station. DX station means distant station, international, or otherwise. Generally, though, outside of your country, so yeah, international. I view Canada as a DX contact. There are lots of people who view Alaska as a DX contact, even if you're in the United States, in CONUS, right, continental U.S. Some view Hawaii a bit like a DX station, but definitely if you're going across an ocean or across a continent, you can generally say that contact is a DX contact. Ham Radio Worldwide says, here's for teaching ham radio the fun way. Hey, thank you. I hope this is fun. It's a bit interactive. I'm having fun doing it. Now, a local contact is generally going to be higher frequency. It's going to be on the higher end of the frequencies of megahertz readout. Something more like akin to these handy talkies, right? And the handy talkies work 140-something-ish megahertz up through 440-ish megahertz. There are some cutouts in the middle for other radio services, but higher frequency radios generally always work as line of sight radios. So that would be a local contact. And there is a fun little distinction on the next questions that we're going to get into from the merit badge that do kind of blur the lines between these local contacts and these DX contacts. DX is a term we all love in amateur radio because we always want those really long contacts. And so, hey, this is an example of that. All right. And by the way, for everybody that's just cluing into the live stream here, these are the straight up questions from the requirements of the merit badge book. And there's maybe one or two times where I'll go over to the book and we'll reference it, but most of the time I'm kind of answering these as though I was the scout, and I'm hopefully giving you a little bit of context to draw along with it. So if you are a scout and you're watching this, I'd love it if you left a comment, or maybe ask your parents if they could leave a comment if this was helpful at all for you in getting your merit badge. That would be really cool to hear that it helped you out. All right. So discuss what the Federal Communication Commission does and how it is different from the International Telecommunications Union. All right. So the FCC, I made a video about this. I've actually made a couple of videos on this. But the FCC's job is to kind of like take the sandbox and we got a question coming up that's talking about the electromagnetic spectrum, particularly radio waves. I wish that requirement would have came before this one, because this works a little bit easier in explaining this, but I could have used that diagram. We may actually come back to this question to reinforce what I'm going to talk about right now. Radio frequency space, right? So again, let's go back to my radio here, right? 10 megahertz, right? There is a 0 megahertz space within the radio frequency, and then there's a point where it stops being radio frequency and it continues into infrared and light and microwaves, right? That is all a part of the electromagnetic spectrum. The FCC's job is to divvy up and cut up that finite amount of electromagnetic space and assign it or define it to a radio service. So the amateur radio service is little slices within the pie that is the electromagnetic frequency space that is part of radio. Your AM broadcast stations, right? They exist in a tiny little pie slice in the entirety of the electromagnetic radio space. That's one of the primary jobs of the FCC, is to, one, allocate call signs, two, define frequency spaces that a call sign or groups of call signs will be operating on, and then enforce it. Level of enforcement, we're not going to talk about in this video, but can vary greatly depending on the service that they exist on. So, for instance, your FM radio station, your classic rock hits radio station, generally the FCC is probably going to do a little bit more enforcing that people don't transmit on that station than if it is an amateur frequency, for instance, because by and large, broadcast stations, commercial stations are paying money, and they pay the FCC to get their license and continue their license. So, all right, I hope that one was pretty self-explanatory. Now, the ITU, on the other hand, the ITU, they do a lot of things, but at the highest level, the ITU's job is to kind of coordinate the limited pie slicing of the radio frequencies that exist out there internationally. Reach some kind of agreement at the international level on how our, finite frequencies are going to be allocated and used, particularly at the international level when it comes to things like shortwave radio and amateur radio. Bob asks, Josh, is your boy in Scouts? Is being a merit badge counselor for this merit badge in your future? So both of my boys are in Cub Scouts. My oldest is a bear right now. Literally, he's a bear. He's just a bear to deal with, but he's also the rank of bear. We below in his future. Will teaching this merit badge be in my future? Probably. Because I would feel bad, like if my sons like showed up if they decide they want to be scouts. If they decided they want to be scouts and they showed up at a meeting and dad had helped them get like the radio merit badge, but I didn't help the entire troop, I'd feel really bad. I would feel really bad. So I would not let that happen. So here's, this should have came first. Here's another thing where we're going to go back to the tablet. Oh, wait, I didn't read the question. So we're going to do the following. We're going to draw an electromagnetic spectrum covering 300 kilohertz to 3,000 megahertz. Again, sounds big, but a finite amount of space. We're going to label those areas MF, HF, VHF, and UHF, and microwave portions of the spectrum on the diagram. And then we're going to locate on the chart at least 8 radio services such as AM, FM, commercial band, citizen band, television, amateur radio, and public service. So I think I can do all of those just with AM and with amateur radio and and AM. But we're gonna have some fun with this one. All right, let me get my there it is. Get my tablet back. Okay. Let's get back to black here. And stop it. Probably should have pre-drawn this one out. Apologize, guys, because this is definitely also a little bit wider at the bottom there. All right, so this is 0 kilohertz, and this is 3K megahertz. Oops, see, let's scale this back a little bit. All right, so breaking this down, we need to add some spaces, right? So the easiest way, and we need to identify medium, what I would call medium wave. They identify it as MF, HF, high frequency, VHF, UHF. So let's start at 1. So we'll just call this 1. Did I make it smaller? Yeah, this is 1. We're going to call this 1. 1 megahertz. So everything that's down here is medium. I would call that medium wave. Now, part of medium wave also includes long wave. From 1 up through 30 is going to be HF. So we're going to color that as well. Let's give it a little bit more space. This is my space. This is where I like to be right here. This is 30 megahertz, right? And then, actually, I'm going to do this a bit different. Let's do this. Okay. And this is 30. Now, from 30 up through 300 megahertz is VHF. And from basically UHF takes you all the way up through 3K. So we're pretty much done with that. So let's grab another color here. Come on. And one more. Let's go with a nice little blue. So this is all going to be UHF then at this spot. And just for a reminder, I call it medium wave. You can say medium frequency if you want. HF, high frequency. VHF is very high frequency. And UHF is ultra high frequency. I don't like the placement of my VHF. That was not what I wanted to do. There we go. And we're going to say VHF. All right, so as far as commercial services go, oh man, we're already at 5:43. Locate on the chart at least 8 radio services such as AM, FM, commercial broadcast, citizens band. Okay, I get the idea. Anyway, so let's take another color here. We will go with this teal color, and we're going to say this is no. We're going to say this is AM. Okay. In the VHF space, we're going to have the commercial. We're going to have FM broadcast, which is going to be about this space right here. CB is going to be just below 30 megahertz, so it's going to be right here around 27 megahertz. And then what else have we got? FM, commercial, CB, amateur radio. At least 4 amateur radio bands. No problem. Right at about a little north of 1, we're going to drop something down here for 80 meters for HF. And then at 7 megahertz, we're going to say this is 40. And then I'm going to skip 30 because I don't really use that band. Take that 30. We're going to say 20. And above CB, we're going to do 10. 10 meters. And let's see, what else do we need? Public service and fire. So public service and fire can generally exist around 800. So I'm going to say public service 800 megahertz, something like that. It looks like a bunch of zeros, but you get the idea. And then upwards of this space is going to be where you get into microwave radio, which starts at, oh yeah, you can do 6 meters as well. Good call, good call. We'll drop 6 meters in. For all you magic band lovers. Oh, no, that's not there. Enhance. So right here, we're going to say 6 meter. So we'll just slide it on in there. Not the best drawing, but you get the idea. So let me go back a step then. Let's see. Oh, I already answered the one about the FCC. Hopefully I did that enough. So, all right, explain how radio waves carry information. Boy, we're blowing right through these. What are we? Not even halfway? We're on page 4 of 17. Oh, buddy, what have I done here? This is a hard merit badge. I actually am remembering this. Yes. Thank you, Leia. I am actually remembering this. Okay. Explain how radio waves carry information. So, depending on the type of modulation, you can impart information onto it in the form of audio coming in from a microphone or from a digital signal like an audio tone that is expressed from a computer. Could be a tape player for all I care. And that gets, again, modulated into a radio signal, radio frequency that gets then transmitted through the final amplifier of your radio and put out as radio wave radiation, right? Radio frequency radiation. As long as those two radios are on the same mode of operation, it can modulate and demodulate. So the components within the radio allow that capability to happen in the simplest term to explain that. Otherwise, we're going to be here for way longer than an hour. Include in your information transmitter, receiver, amplifier, antenna. Oh, okay, fine. How do radio waves carry information? The transceiver is connected to a microphone. The microphone takes my voice. The transmitter modulates it and puts it out through an amplifier, which increases the power in watts to an antenna. That antenna is cut or possibly resonant, which means it's physically matching the frequency that you're transmitting on. That radiated energy gets picked up by another antenna. That other antenna is connected from some distance away, is connected to a receiver. That receiver demodulates that energy, that signal, as it converts it back into its base parts. And then whatever modulation format of your radio or mode that it's running in will output that out through a speaker, and boom, there you go. I did say all the things. Good. Do the following. Explain the difference between a block diagram and a schematic diagram. Okay, this is a good one. And again, there's a drawing portion of this as well. So a block diagram is something where you take a abstraction of parts and using the above identifiers here, transceiver, transmitter, receiver, amplifier, antenna, those are blocks of a block diagram. An antenna is a block, an amplifier is a block, a transceiver, which consists of a transmitter and a receiver, are themselves blocks, which then could be put into a larger block. Those make up a block diagram, right? It's kind of a way of abstracting things out to make it easier to understand that I don't care necessarily if it's a tube-based radio like vacuum tube or a solid-state radio. I just know that it is performing this transmitter or receiver function, for instance. On the flip side, a schematic, that shows you a component diagram of the discrete individual components that may be in something like a receiver or a transmitter. This is where you might see resistors and capacitors, LEDs. This is where a ground is going to be identified, an antenna, a battery, that kind of thing. So we're going to draw a block diagram that for a radio station that includes a transceiver, an amplifier, a microphone, an antenna, and a feed line. Hey, I can do that. Let's do that now. Back to my drawing. I think I'm going to make a new one. I don't want to necessarily lose this one. We're going to make a new drawing here. Nobody laugh at my drawings, okay? Or my truck, because I'm trying to do a picture of it. But anyway. Also, don't look at Randy. You didn't see Randy there. I'm just kidding. I already used that in a thumbnail. Anyway, so a block diagram that includes a transceiver, an amplifier, a microphone. Okay, so we're going to do black. Come on now. So I wonder, can I do this? No, that's okay. Close enough. Let's do that. My blocks are going to be a little rough. So this is the mic. This is your transceiver. Transceiver is both the transmitter and the receiver. This is the amp. And we need to have an antenna, which I'm actually going to express the antenna a little bit differently. We're going to use the standard diagram for an antenna. Now, the line here is feed line. That feed line, which we call coax, connects all the devices except the microphone. That's usually connected over XLR. Or some specific cable that is based off of the radio company that you bought it from. Oh, yeah, that is a ground. Wrong one. Hold on. There we go. Thanks. See? It's somewhat in my head. All right. So there's our block diagram. Let's go back to the web. Oh, all right. Discuss how information is sent when using amplitude modulation, frequency modulation, continuous wave, Morse code transmission, and single sideband transmission, and digital transmission. Okay, so the name of most of these is what gives you what you need to know about all of them as a mode. So amplitude modulation is going to be expressed as a change in, well, there'll be a solid carrier frequency, but, well, actually I can demonstrate this. Hold on. Let's go back here. So let's take this. Okay, so we're looking at amplitude modulation right now. It's the spikes and the intensity of those spikes, the amplitude changes, which is the size of a changing frequency. That is going to be the information that is imparted over time. I don't have an example of FM because I don't have my 705 connected, but FM is different. FM is frequency modulation. Frequency is the change in time between the peaks and the valleys of an oscillation. An oscillation is one up and down kind of thing. That's not exactly the right term, but the concept is if you have a sine wave, for instance, it has an up and a down and an up and a down. How fast it goes up and down is the frequency, the distance between peak to peak, valley to valley. If the peaks and valleys change over time, that's frequency modulation. Modulation is a change expressed over time. Let's see. Continuous wave or Morse code. Okay, we're going to flip things around a little bit. I'm going to go back to 20 meters. We're going to go back to my radio. Maybe. There we go. Back to my radio. We're going to let it catch up with itself, and I'm going to get myself on a dummy load. I don't even know that we're going to be able to do my QSOs. Let's see. Let's go down. I'm not going to be transmitting. I'm on a dummy load, which is basically a power sink, if you will. It's a heat sink for RF. And it's a poor antenna, so nobody's going to be able to hear me. So is my antenna happy? Yeah. Okay, so, oh, now you got to be in CW. It helps better when you're in there. Okay, so you're looking at, and in fact, let me decrease the span again. How far can we go down? All right, and we're going to... There we go. All right. So... Oh, good. Okay, I'll use my straight key for this. All right, so Morse code or continuous wave is a constant sine wave at a specific hertz value, which is slightly adjustable depending on the radio that you want to transmit on. But everybody put your ears on, or you already have your ears on. We're going to get the ears on the radio here. Why can't you hear it? Oh, you guys can't hear it. That sucks. Okay. Well, shoot. That's part of my whole thing right there. Anyway, the continuous wave, if I hold it down, hopefully you can hear this. No, you can't, can you? No. Anyway, that's a continuous output of a sine wave. If I manipulate that up and down like it's a switch, I can make something actually like a character. That's a K. K. A. N. So the expression of the information is via my on and off cycle of that switch, the Morse code key. So if I were to do my call sign... Wait, that's not right. Yeah, there we go. So it's the manipulation up and down of that switch that allows me to impart information. And it's simply an on and off. So when there's no noise, that's a space between the parts of a character, or a space between characters, or a space between words. And it's that expression of on and off that gives you letters. So again, K, L. You get the idea. Okay, so there you go. Turn that down again. All right, single sideband is a fun one, and we can demonstrate that too by looking at the radio here. So let's go way up on the frequency here. We're going to go back to single sideband, and we're going to go way up here and get on an antenna. Oh, there it is. We found somebody. Hold on. Wait for them to come back. Oh, you were muted. What a bummer. Here, let me open this up a little bit. Hey, there's somebody.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is it cold over there yet?
We got a heater in the tent here. It's not bad. How about you?
So what's going on here? So we're upper sideband, which looks kind of like a wave, where the high side is on the far left and the lower side is off to the right. You see that? That's a little bit higher on the left. If you look at that center line in the middle of my scope. One hotel. That's a winter field day. Well, to best understand this, so remember this shape of this transmission, right? It's just a single kind of like... Oh, that's a good one. Look at that.
Lima Tango X-ray. Oh, QSL. Okay, I just forgot. You're going to need an exchange with my grid, right? Oh, okay. That's simple. Thanks. It saved me from looking it up. I just powered on Microsoft that I don't power up often, so it's 15.
I think that's looking at the wrong antenna. It doesn't matter. All right. All right, so let's do a juxtaposition here, because AM, what we use on HF, or more likely shortwave broadcast stations, and single sideband are different. How can we best describe that? Well, let's go back to my little display here. There we go. So amplitude modulation, like WWV, for instance, is going to look a little bit like that wave that we talked about with a carrier frequency. And then there's another little wave like that. Kind of looks like a radio wave giving me the finger. And if we express that over time, looking at my my radio here that has what's called a waterfall expression over time, you would see a constant carrier going down and then some amount of variation on the waterfall going along, and it would change, and that change would be the expression of the sound, right, over time. Now, if this is AM. So for a single sideband, we have both a lower sideband and an upper sideband. And the dividing line, if you will, is the frequency, basically, that center frequency. So, for instance, on the radio that we were just looking at, we're on 14.298. So let's not confuse things. We'll just say this is 14.298. So upper sideband omits the carrier frequency, the AM middle finger, I guess, and omits one of the side lobes. This is the lower side lobe. This is the upper side lobe. So if we're talking upper sideband, which is what 14.298 megahertz exists on, then it's just going to be expressed as this little waterfall for upper sideband. Now, if we go lower frequency, meaning if we go to something like 7.200, don't go there. I take it back. 7.190 megahertz. It would be this side of the little waterfall, without any of the expression of the center frequency or one of these two side lobes. No, I don't like that either. So forget that. So there you go. That's kind of how that works. As far as digital, so digital gets broken up. Digital gets broken up into how your computer wants to hear it, and that goes into a whole nother series of discussions on FSK, frequency shift keying modes, and other modes that use a type of FM to express data in the form of characters. So hopefully that's close to it. I kind of short shifted the digital transmission a little bit, but basically it's taking your computer and make the computer noises go out your radio. In the case of upper sideband, which is what we use for digital mode, it's literally the frequency that sound exists on that can change how it's expressed. Oh boy, this is the one we're definitely going to go over the hour. How much more do we got here? Holy smokes. Oh no, I think we're good. Okay, we can because we got to break up here in a second, because it's going to go to just ham radio. How many people we got watching? Almost 400 people. Right on. Oh no, I think we do have 400 people. Thanks for watching. Now we're going to do something fun. Fun-ish. Funner. You tell me. I don't know. We'll see. All right, Leia, how does Noah protect you in an emergency? Or can alert you to danger? I'll throw that to my
Partly cloudy. Lows in the upper 40s. Saturday, partly cloudy in the morning, then sunny. Highs in the mid-60s to around 70. At 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, on Saturday, January 28th, these were the conditions around Southern California. At downtown Los Angeles, it was mostly cloudy. The temperature was 60, and the relative humidity 61%. The wind was calm. The pressure was 29.94 inches and steady. At Los Angeles Airport, it was partly cloudy. The temperature was 58, and the relative humidity 66%.
All right, this is
The
NOAA
wind
radio.
was south
I'm
at
muting
5
for a
miles
second.
an hour.
So talking about
The
waterfalls
pressure
again, you
was
see the intensity. Oh, see, now I
29.94
have to use
inches
my
and
fingers as a
steady.
pointer. See the intensity of the
Torrance,
signal?
it was
This
partly
is the
cloudy.
spectrum display.
The temperature
You can
was
actually see
57.
it's quite loud. It's
At
like
Long
20,
Beach Airport,
20
it was
plus,
clear.
over
The
S9.
temperature was 59, and
That's
the
the
relative
signal that we're
humidity
listening to right now,
64%.
which is
The wind was south at 7 miles an hour.
megahertz.
At
And
Santa
that
Ana, it
information
was partly cloudy.
over time
The
is
temperature was
expressed over the
59.
waterfall, which you can see.
At
it goes
Burbank,
down the
it
line.
was clear. The
So
temperature
NOAA
was 57.
weather radio
At Van
is
Nuys,
anyone
it
can
was
buy
clear.
these off the shelf.
The
And they'll
temperature was
notify
57.
you to local issues.
The wind
that are
was south
happening.
at 9
Here in
miles
Southern
an hour.
California, we mainly get
At
notified of
Ontario,
coastal weather
it was partly
conditions.
cloudy. The temperature was
It's
58.
an example of
At Woodland
how
Hills,
you could be notified
temperature
of
was
major
55,
issues with,
and relative humidity
tornadoes,
was 62.
hurricanes,
At Sandburg,
flooding
in the vicinity of
based
Tejon
off
Pass,
exten-
it was clear.
extensive amounts of rain,
The temperature
etc.
was 45.
So, all that stuff.
The wind was south at 10 miles an hour. At
Well,
Lancaster,
thank you.
it was
Thanks.
clear.
I don't know if that's directed at
The
me.
temperature was 56.
Turn NOAA down. I did
The
turn
wind
NOAA
was
down. It's
southwest
muted
at
me.
12 miles an hour. At Palm Springs,
Oh, why is it still? Oh. Okay, sorry. It should be good now. Why was that doing that? All right, let me repeat that. So NOAA is for local emergency weather information. It will tell you about tornadoes, hurricanes, in my case in Southern California, coastal weather patterns like high tides and wave conditions. We even get those here in Southern California. So we use NOAA as a part of, again, that's a part of our U.S. government in terms of notifying us about weather. And you can buy a weather radio at a Walmart that will tell you all kinds of stuff about NOAA. So there you go. That was that example. Let me bring back my questionnaire. There we go. Explain how cellular telephones work. Identify their benefits and limitations in an emergency. Oh, I've got an image for this. Where is it? Yes, there we go. All right. Cell phones are radios in their own right, but they don't communicate from radio to radio. They use cell phone towers, like the one you see here, which is poorly obfuscated as a tree. And that, what happened to my chat? I got no chats. I lost my chat. Ah, the joys of live. I lost it. There it is. Okay. So, cell phones are a useful tool, but they're totally dependent on what I would call a service-based grid system, if you will. And if any one of those towers goes down or continued access to your phone via those servers and connected systems and base relay stations and all that, if there's any disruption, then in an emergency, they're actually not that useful. They're not that handy for you. So in my case, as much as I like my cell phone, I love it, I prefer radio when it comes to a power outage. I'm always the first to hop on a radio because also conditions are going to be really quiet. All right, explain the safety precautions for working with radio gear, including the concept of grounding for direct currents, power outlets, and antenna systems. So general safety precautions for radio. This is pretty simple. What? Leigh, are you making fun of me? My wife is in the chat taunting me. There we go. All right. So, general safety precautions are these are electronic devices, so you need to have an appropriate connection to some kind of AC connection if you're going to be connecting into your house's mains. And so any general safety that you would do in those cases is going to be important. However, we have an additional issue here is that our radios are creating radio frequency radiation, and this is non-ionizing radiation. So you're not going to get cancer from this or anything like that, but it can develop something called RF burns. If by some reason someone is transmitting on a radio and you grab an antenna or are too close to an antenna or the station is not appropriately grounded, and you're talking to a microphone, for instance, you could get what's called an RF burn. And an RF burn is most commonly identified as like a topical burn that you might get from touching something hot or a flame touching you. It's kind of like that, but I feel like it's more like a pinprick. If you get an RF burn, it's like a stab of direct radiated heat, if you will, but it's very pointy. I don't know how else better to explain it. If you get burned by something that's hot, it's over the surface that you touch. But with RF, it's almost like a lightning bolt that just goes pew, lightning bolt right into your flesh. They're painful, but they're not so bad. With that said, you don't want to get a bunch of direct exposure to RF if you can avoid it. And there's a couple ways to do it. Is one, remove people from the antenna that's actually transmitting. Make sure you're not just hanging around it. Also, appropriately ground your station. Make sure that anything connects to your AC service main is appropriately grounded. In the course of running an antenna, you could be in a situation where you have inclement weather, which has lightning. Lightning is very dangerous for radios and humans. So what we try to do with that is have a lightning ground system that will allow the lightning to pass to the shortest path to ground using something like a ground stake or ground connector that is as close to the antenna as possible. So thank you for the super chat from the Craze. Camp date RSVP will announced on Discord Chan. So Leia is working on the details right now. The date is going to be April 28th through the 30th. It will be in Ramona, California. We already have the campsites reserved. Leia's working on a website right now to capture information for everybody meeting up, and I'm literally working on the form right now. There you go. So that we can all be together and have some ham radio fun. All right, so radio. So this is where we flip it all over. I may just want to we may have to break this into two parts. Let's see. Visit a radio station. Discuss what types of equipment you saw and how it was used. What types of license are required to operate. Well, shoot, we've already done all that. We can talk about that right now, I think. Let's see what else we got. Find out about 3 career opportunities in radio. All right, so we got LID. We got end-fed half-wave salesperson, and we got 3D printer. No, I'm just kidding. Kit builders, radio kit builders. Those are the professions in amateur radio. Let's see. All right. You think we can get through this? Yeah, I think we can get through this. Yeah, what the heck? What do we got? Yeah, we're probably going to go to 6:30. All right, here we go. Visit a radio station. We're in a radio station. You visited it via my live stream. Why do 2 parts? Why am I doing 2 parts, Leia? Do it in 2 parts? I guess if I do it in 2 parts, then we can actually take a bunch of time and activate and make a proper, 10-minute contact. We're going to be here forever. All right. My wife has decided that we're going to wrap this up. But hey, that's okay, because it probably won't be next week, because next week's going to be patron picks. And I got something planned. Thomas Witherspoon's going to be joining us again. This is going to be super fun for me. But by the way, Leia, we're pretty much, okay, we're more than halfway through. But at the end of this segment, so again, let me go back up to the top here. So we just went through 1 through 8. So we've completed those parts of the merit badge. And now we're going to do section A, which is the amateur radio portion. So we're going to do these 6 items. We'll do it on the next stream in the future. So there's side boob. I don't know that you can get it on 11 meters, bud. But I don't know. Let's see. Next time we revisit this, though, we will be making a 10-meter long amateur radio contact, and we'll do it on the air, single sideband. We'll make contacts with all of you. That will be not 10 minutes in total, not just a 1 10-meter, 10-minute. I don't know why I keep saying 10 meters. No, 1 10-minute contact. No, it's going to be done. It's not that difficult. We're more than halfway through. This is actually easy, and I could technically just cheap it out by saying, "Hey, look at all the Look at all my QSL cards from the last couple of months, right? That's not a big deal. But guys, we're going to wrap things up then. We're going to go to the Discord and have ourselves an after chat, and we would love it if you joined us out there. Reminder, the patches are live now. Oh yeah, I'm wearing mine. They're specially designed to fit on the Velcro backing on a 511 hat or any of the rectangles, so they fit perfectly in there if you're so interested in that. I took some more pictures of them. There you go. Look at that. Look at that. Good looking patch. So if you want to consider supporting the channel, that would be great. All right, let's say a big thank you to the patrons. By the way, the patron... What? Where's the video? What just happened? Wait a second. Wait a gosh darn second. What just happened here? Hold on. The patrons are worth it. We're going to make this work. There it is. Why you no work? Hey, there you go. Oh, that's weird. Thank you to the Patreon supporters. We are going to go to the after chat, but for all the patrons that haven't voted yet at the producer level, the folks you see here, there is a vote. There are a couple of interesting options that are in there. If you haven't voted yet, I really do need you to vote because it ends tomorrow. One of them, anyway, Leia's in the chat, so we got to be careful. She doesn't know what it is, so don't nobody mention it in the chat. Don't say it, Nathan. Leia better not pull the plug. But anyway, hey, hopefully that'll help out some of the scouts. We'll be back for a part 2 in the future where we're going to just do the amateur radio section of the merit badge. I frankly like this merit badge. I think this is really cool. I had a lot of fun just drawing some things out using my little iPad mini here connected to the stream. That was super cool. I think that this is actually, believe it or not, I think this is actually like a really cool way to demonstrate radio, just like talk about the concept of radio, the love of radio, all that stuff. Like we demonstrated a couple of things using the radios here. I used the SDR play for the high band stuff or high frequency stuff. And yeah, this could be really cool as a demonstrative thing. If you ever wanted to get involved in helping young people like learn radio, you could almost use this as like a, I don't know, like get involved in some kind of STEM class where you could use that as almost the syllabus for the class, is just walking through and demonstrating a lot of this stuff. So yeah, it's really cool. Cool. All right. I'm happy with that. Okay, guys, we're going to go to Discord and have a little bit of fun. We'd love it if you joined us over there. It's a big group of people, 50 to 60, 70 people all getting together, talking on Discord chat and answering your questions, particularly if you're new. We want to help you out. So I'll be live here shortly. I'm going to flip the live around for an after chat, so stay tuned. I'll be posting a video here shortly for you to watch live as we do the after chat, but highly recommend you join us and have a little bit of fun and hopefully answer your questions for ham radio. I am Josh, KI6NAZ. Thanks so much for watching. 73. Enjoy the memes. Helps if I'm unmuted. Oh my God, is Noah still on? No, Noah's off. Good. No, it's muted. What the heck? There it is. Noah's still there. Stop. Noah, stop. Why you do this, Noah? Yeah, see? I got it. It's gone. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you in, I don't know, give me 15, 20 minutes. I'll see you in a bit. 73.